It can be incredibly difficult trying to keep track of everything that you have to do at work, and this was especially true for me because I'm very forgetful. But I started using this task tracker at work and it's made all the difference. When I have a new task, I'll add that to column C, and when I press enter, an automatic number will appear to the left, and an automatic timestamp will appear under task added. Then I'll add the task type, so if I knew about it at the beginning of the week, it'll be planned. If I didn't, it'll be unplanned. I also have weekly recurring and monthly recurring, which goes in this top section where my recurring tasks are. Then I have unable to start and follow up. In this case, the user isn't starting yet, so I'll mark it as unable to start. For my progress/status, I have done, pending, not started, next week, ready, and parked. And then I'll assign a priority, which I have high, medium, low, recurring, unable to start, follow up, and top. And I'll select unable to start again. If I have a link associated with the task, I'll add that here. And then I'll add the task focus, which is what area of my job this task is related to. After that, I'll add any more notes that I need to elaborate on the task. So for example, this user isn't starting until July 1st. And then I'll add the value add, and this is what value this task brings to the company. So for example, I can provide a quick onboarding to minimize onboarding costs. And you can make all of this as long or as short as you'd like. But I think it's a good idea to remind yourself what you did and why you did it later on when it's time for performance reviews. Now, since this task is for the future and I can't complete it yet because they haven't started, I'm going to go ahead and mark this as parked. That way it clears from this list and clears up the clutter, and it'll be moved to the bottom of this parked task list. And this way I won't forget about it, but it won't overwhelm my active to-do list. When it's time to complete the task, all I have to do is mark that task as ready, and it will move from that parked task list back to the bottom of the task list. And now we can work on it. So I'll change the type from unable to start to either planned or unplanned. Really it's planned, but I'm going to mark it as unplanned for this example. Then I'll change the priority to whatever I want it to be. In this case, I'll put high. When I start working on the task, I can mark the progress/status as pending. And just to the right, you'll see a timestamp automatically appear under task started. And then since it's at the bottom of the list, I'm going to go ahead and move that row all the way up by just dragging and dropping. And you'll see the automatic numbering automatically updates to the new position. And you'll also see that the text turned green. When the task is completed, I'll simply mark it as done. And you'll see that the task completely removes from this task list and moves to the bottom of the Done tab. And the Done tab gives you a nice comprehensive list of everything that you've completed and all the details surrounding it. And then I have the Visualizations tab. So I can see exactly where I'm spending my time and how many tasks I've completed each week. And I have this broken up by week as well as month for task focus, task priority, and task type. So if you should be focusing on some areas of your position over others, you can easily see if you're meeting that goal or not. Now back in our task list, as I mentioned, the top section is for recurring tasks, and these work the exact same way with the exception of when I mark it as done. The timestamp will appear to the right, but it will not automatically move, and that's because I wanted to stay there for next week. But it will be copied down to the bottom of the Done tab and included in our visualizations. And you also can't move it to parked and then back, it just lives there forever. Up at the top, I can see exactly how many tasks I've completed during the current week. And updating the tracker for the next week is super easy. I just double click on the date and select the next Monday. And as you can see, when we updated that date, the completed counter turns to 0 since nothing has happened yet. Then I'll change any unplanned task types to planned since I now know about them going into the beginning of the week. And I'll change all my recurring tasks back to not started. The first thing we'll do is rename our spreadsheet to whatever you want it to be. Then we'll right click on the tab and click rename. We'll rename that as task list. And it does need to say task list specifically, otherwise you'll need to adjust the automation later. We'll select cells A1 through F1, and we'll click on the little paint bucket to make the background blue, and the A to make it white. And you can make the color scheme whatever you want, just make sure you can read what it says, so we can type test in one of the cells, and if you can read it, you're good. We'll select cells A2 all the way through L2, and we're going to add some more color. This time I'm going to make a lighter blue, but I'm going to have that same white font. And once again, this is your tracker, so you can make this look however you like. It's just formatting. Just make sure you can read it, so we'll type test. We're good to go on that one. The next thing we'll do is add our headers. So in cell A2, I'm going to type the £, and this column is too wide, so I'm going to click on the gray line between A and B and drag that over to the left to make it smaller. In B2, we'll put type, C2, task list, then progress/status. In E2, we'll put priority, followed by link, task focus, notes, value add, task added, task started, and finally in L2, task completed. I'm going to select all of row 2 by clicking on the 2, copy that, and paste that in row 6. And this will create sections. The top section will be for our recurring tasks, and our bottom section will be for everything else. In cell B1, we're going to type weekly start date, colon. And in E1, we'll type completed, colon. And some of these columns are a little bit too small, so I'll click on the line between B and C and make column B bigger. Same thing with column C. I'm going to make that bigger as well. And D just a little bit bigger. And G just a little bit bigger. And H just a little bit bigger. Alright, so now we're going to build our automatic counter, and this may look a little bit advanced for you, but don't worry, just follow it to a T and you'll be all good. So in cell A3, we're going to type equals if, open parentheses, is blank, open parentheses, C3, close parentheses, comma, comma, max, open parentheses, $, A, $2, colon, offset, open parentheses, A3, comma, -1, comma, 0, close parentheses, plus 1, close parentheses. And if you did it correctly, when you type text into cell C3, you should get a 1. And if you don't have text in there, it should be blank. And what this formula is doing is it's saying if cell C is blank, it'll be blank. Otherwise, I want to find the maximum number in the range from A2 all the way to where that formula is present. And I'm going to add 1 to that number. And the formula is currently in cell A3. Make sure that in the formula there is no $signs around A3 because we want that to shift down with the formula. So when I use the fill handle to drag that formula down to the other rows, you can see that now it says instead of A3, it's A4, etc. And if you did that right, whenever you type test, it should say 2 and then 3. And if you delete the middle row, it should say 1 blank 2. Now everything's looking good. So I'm going to click on cell A3 and copy that formula and paste it in A7. And the formula is going to be pretty much exactly the same. We just need to adjust it to include only the bottom section. So where it says $A, $2, we need to change that 2 to a 6. And if we write test in column C, we should get a 1. Everything looks good, so we can use that fill handle to drag that formula down to the rest of the rows. Now we're going to set up the dropdowns. So we'll click on B2, go to Data, Data Validation, Add Rule. It will default to dropdowns. And instead of option 1, we'll clear that and type planned. I'm going to make that a green color. Then we'll put unplanned. I'll make that orange. And you can make these colors whatever you want. It won't affect anything. It's just visual. For option 3, we'll type weekly recurring. And I'm going to make that a light purple. We'll click add another item and put monthly recurring. And we'll change that to yellow. Add another item. And we'll put unable to start. And I'm going to make that black. Add another item. Follow up, and I'll make that brown. Then I'll hit done. So as you can see, the drop down is only in cell B2, but we can use the fill handle to drag that down to B5. And I'm actually going to copy that, paste it in B7. I'll drag it down just a little bit, and then I'll go back into our data validation, and I'm going to delete the last rows so that way it ends in B to go all the way through the end of column B. So now we're good with the first drop down. And we're going to do the same exact thing for the next dropdown. This one will be for progress/status. So we'll click on D2, go to Data, Data Validation, Add Rule. Instead of option 1, we'll put Done. I'm going to make that green. Option 2 will be Pending. I'll make that yellow. Add another item. Not Started. And I'll make that blue. And once again, you can do whatever color scheme you want. I'll click Add another item and put Next Week. I'll make that red. Add another item, ready, and I'll make that this blue color. Add another item, and I'll make that part. And I'll make it purple. And then I'll hit done. And once again, we'll use the fill handle to drag that down to the top section. Copy it, paste it in column 7. Use the fill handle to drag it down just a little bit. Delete the last bit of rows in the range so it ends in D, then hit done. And we'll do the same exact thing for column E. We'll click add another rule in the data validation editor. We'll change the option 1 to top, make that red. Option 2 will be high. I'll make that blue. Then we'll have medium, and I'll make that orange. And once again, you can make this whatever color scheme you want. It does not affect anything. I'll put low and make that yellow. Then unable to start, and I'll make that black just like last time. And then I'll put follow up and make that brown just like last time. And I did forget recurring, so you can go ahead and add that in there if you'd like. I made it purple. We'll go back in here a little bit later and fix it. All right, so we already have the drop down in all of the first sections, so we'll go ahead and copy that drop down and we'll paste it in row 7 just like last time. Use the fill handle to drag that formula down just a little bit. Remove the rows in the range so it ends in E, and that's it. And as I mentioned, I forgot to include recurring in that priority status. So to get back into the editor, I'm going to click on the drop down, then click the pencil in the bottom right hand corner, and that will bring up the editor for that specific drop down. So we can go ahead and add recurring into the options. And if you want to reorder them, all you have to do is just click on the dots to the left, and you can drag those up or down. I'll put this between low and unable to start. When I hit done, it'll ask me if I want to do just for that one drop down or for everything. I'll put apply to all. So now every drop down in that range has that new option. We need to do one more drop down, so I'm going to show you a different way. We can go to insert drop down instead of data validation. It goes to the same place. So we're going to do this for task focuses, and yours will look completely different than mine. All this is a list of different parts of your job where these tasks can be related to. For example, I work in revenue operations, so my task focuses are increased efficiency, improved profitability, enablement, project completion, special project, tool hygiene, tool configuration, reporting, and troubleshooting. But once again, these need to be specific to your role at your company. And we're going to extend this drop down to the rest of the range just like we've done many times before. So now we're done with the drop downs, and next we're going to set up conditional formatting. So we'll select all of column C, go to conditional formatting, and we're actually going to change the range, so instead of it saying C1, it's going to be C3 instead. We're going to use the format rules drop down to custom formula is, put equals, D3 equals done, change the background fill to none, change the text color to a dark gray, and put a strike through. And for this to work, the row number in our formula has to match the row number in our range. So C3 and D3, we're good. I'll click add another rule to duplicate that rule. I'll change done to pending. I'll remove the strike through and change the color to yellow. And in real life, I'm actually going to change it to green because yellow is kind of hard to read. I'll click add another rule and change pending to next week. I'll add back in that strike through and make the text red instead. So once you're done, it should look like this. We can go ahead and exit out of this editor. And in the progress/status dropdown, if we select next week, it should turn red and have a strike through with it. If it's pending, it should be yellow. And if it's done, it should be gray with a strike through. So everything's looking perfectly. Now we're going to select cell C1, go to data validation, add rule. We'll use the criteria drop down to select is valid date, select reject the input, and then hit done. And what this does is instead of having to type out the weekly start date each time, it allows for a pop-out calendar instead. So you can simply select it on a calendar instead of having to type it out manually. All right, so we're going to stop on the task list for a second. Instead, we're going to click on the plus button in the bottom left-hand corner to add a new tab. And we're going to rename that as parked tasks. I put parked on here in error. We're going to fix that later. We'll click on plus to add a new tab. And we'll rename that as done. Add a new tab. And we'll rename that as visualizations, worksheet. Add a new tab. And rename that as visualizations. And you can name both of the visualizations tab whatever you want. All the other ones do need to match, otherwise we'll need to change the automation later. So now you're going to go to my link in bio and click on app script-codes. And this will be all the codes we're using for automation. And you can see the different versions. We want to select the upgraded continuous flow task tracker version. And in the top right, you'll see a little copy button. Click copy. And now we're going to go back to our spreadsheet. We'll go to extensions, app script, and we'll delete whatever is automatically there. And once it's blank, we'll simply paste that code. And this code is what drives our automation. Don't worry, you don't need to know how it works. And what we'll do is where it says untitled project, we'll rename that. It doesn't matter what you rename it as. I'll put timestamp and automation, then hit rename, and then I'll click save. And if you do want to make some customizations to the number of rows or the names of the dropdowns, you will need to make some edits here. And don't worry, it's super easy, but I'll show you how to do that in a separate video. Now we're going to go back to our spreadsheet and select all of row 2, go to parked, and paste that in row 1. Now the next thing we want to do is make sure all the automations are working correctly, including the timestamps. So when we add text to column C, you should see a timestamp automatically appear under task added. which it did, so everything's working properly there. You'll see only the date in the cell, but if you click on that cell, you'll see the timestamp as well. I'm going to delete that since everything else can be done with the task we already have. I'll select pending, and a timestamp should automatically appear under task started. Now we're going to change that status to parked. And as I mentioned, I accidentally named the tab parked instead of parked tasks, so that's why the automation is not working. So I'm going to change that from parked to parked tasks. And now I'm going to toggle it back to pending and toggle that back to parked. So now it should work properly. So once I select parked, it should automatically be removed from the task list and be added to the parked tasks instead. Now you'll see a reference error in column A. That's because the formula doesn't have anything to pull from. It won't affect anything, so don't worry about it. You can just make column A super small so you don't see it. Now let's go ahead and change that status from parked to ready, and it should be removed from the parked tasks and be added to the bottom of the task list. Now to test the working parts, I'm just going to follow the flow that it normally would. So I'll mark it as pending, drag that row all the way up to where I want it to be next, change the type to unplanned, and change the priority to top. And as I mentioned, the yellow is kind of hard to read for the conditional formatting for pending, so you can change that to green instead. But everything's working, so I'm going to use the drop-down to select done, and it should automatically disappear from this task list and move to the done tab. And as you can see, we forgot to add the headers, so I'm going to go ahead and insert a row above. Then we'll go to our task list and select either row 2 or row 7, hit copy, and we'll paste it in row 1 of the done tab. And just like last time, you'll see that reference error. You can just make that super small for column A, and that way you won't really see it. So everything is working exactly as it should. Now for the progress/status, it's up to you what you keep in the active task list and what you put on parked. For me, I would put anything that's in next week as parked, as well as anything that's unplanned or follow up. That way it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. I don't forget about it. It doesn't go off my radar, but my task list is not nearly as overwhelming as it would be with those on it. So once again, you can click parked, then go back to ready whenever you're ready to work, and it should show up at the very bottom of the task list. And the last thing we need to try is the recurring tasks. By default, whenever I mark a recurring task as parked, it will not move because it's a recurring task. We want it to stay front and center. And then if we mark it as pending, it should have the same conditional formatting as we did before. And the timestamp should appear just like it did before. When we mark it as done, you'll see that it's marked as done. The task completed timestamp appears, but it will not be removed from this task list because we want it to stay on there for next time. However, it will be copied to the bottom of the done tab. That way you have everything that you completed all in one spot. Now I don't really want to see my timestamps at all times, so I'm going to select all of those columns, right click, go to View Column Actions, group columns J through L. And now I can click the plus to make them bigger, or I can collapse them super easily. Now I want to do the same thing for the recurring tasks, so I'll select columns 3 through 6, right click, click View More Row Actions, then group columns 3 through 6. So now it's grouped. Now the reason why I left the header is because when we scroll down, the headers disappear. So I want to click on the thick gray bar just above row 1 and drag that to beneath row 2. And that way I can see the headers at all times. And yes, if you have it in this view, the headers will be duplicated when you're at the top. But if that bothers you, just expand the recurring section instead. All right, so now we're going to go to our Done tab. And I want to select all of column L by clicking on L. And in the toolbar, we want to click Paintbrush and paint column M. And what this does is it paints the exact formatting, so you don't need to change anything. And this is quite advanced, but I want to extract whatever the date complete is. I want it to return the Monday of that week in column L. And not only am I going to do that, but I'm also going to embed this formula into the header in column M. So once again, it's super advanced. Don't worry about understanding exactly what it does, but just follow me and you'll be fine. So we'll put equals, open curly bracket, quote, week start, quote, semicolon, array formula, open parentheses, if, open parentheses, is blank, open parentheses, L2 colon L, close parentheses, comma, comma, round down, open parentheses, L2 colon L plus 3 minus weekday, open parentheses, L2 colon L, comma, 16. Close parentheses, close parentheses, close parentheses, close parentheses, close curly bracket. So it should be 4 close parentheses and then a close curly bracket. Now, if there is not a date in column L, it'll be blank. But if there is a date in column L, it will return the Monday of that date. And you can test this out by clicking on a few dates using the Popout calendar. You can select a date, then open the calendar again, and make sure that the date listed in column M matches the Monday of that week. And if you don't like the week start name, the text in green in the formula itself, where it says week start between the parentheses, is what you can change to rename it. Now what this formula is saying is if column L is blank, then column M will be blank as well. But if column L is not blank, then we're going to take the Monday of the week listed in column L. And the formula is only in row 1. If you click on one of the rows in column M, you'll just see text. Alright, so now we're going to go back to our task list, and we want to build our completed counter. So in F1, we'll put equals count ifs, open parentheses, go to done, select all of column L, put a comma, then we'll put quote, greater than or equal to, quote, ampersand. Go back to our task list, and we're going to select the date in cell C1. And that ampersand acts as a join, so it's the same thing as saying greater than or equal to the contents of C1. So in this case, greater than or equal to June 24th, 2024. Then we'll put a comma, go back to our Done tab, select column L. We'll put a comma. Then we're going to go back to the task list. And after that comma, we'll put quote, less than or equal to, quote, ampersand, open parentheses, C1 plus 7 minus weekday, open parentheses, cell C1, comma, 16, close parentheses, close parentheses, close parentheses. So as you can see, we have a 0, and that's because nothing has happened on this week yet, because that week is in the future. But if I change that back to the 17th, you'll see that we have 2 completed, and that's because 2 already exist on that Done tab. Now, due to the automation for adding a task, you'll see that whenever we update C1, it will add a timestamp for J1 as well. If that bothers you, just make it invisible by making it a white font. But now we're going to test out the counter. So I'll go ahead and send another task to the Done tab. Once it moves, you'll see that the counter automatically increases. And then I'll send a recurring task to the Done tab. It will stay, but you'll see that counter automatically increase. And that formula is counting anything between the Monday and the Friday of that week. Alright, so the counter itself is pretty much done. Now we just need to add the visualizations. So we'll go to the Done tab, select columns A all the way through column M, go to Insert, Pivot Table, Existing Sheet, click on the 4 boxes, and then we're going to go to our visualizations worksheet. It doesn't really matter where this is. I'm going to start with A2, then hit OK. Then I'll hit Create. And we're going to create these pivot tables because these pivot tables are going to summarize the data for us to be able to build the charts. If you're not familiar with pivot tables, these are our different columns. We'll click and drag Task Focus underneath rows. We'll drag Week Start underneath columns. And we'll drag the task list underneath values because we want the count of how many tasks were completed. Now I don't want to see the totals, so under Week Start, I'm going to uncheck Totals and do the same for Task Focus. Alright, so if you look at the pivot table, you'll see that we do have a 0 for blanks. We don't want to include any blanks, so under Filter, we'll drag Week Start. And Filter by Condition, we'll put greater than or equal to 0. And since the filter says it has to be greater than or equal to 0, it will filter out anything that's currently blank and only include things that have a date instead. Now there's only one result because our Done tab only has 6/17 as the date. I'm going to go ahead and reformat all of these as dates so that way we can read it easier. And to test out everything's looking good, I'm going to change the task completed date to something prior. And you can see that the pivot table adjusted automatically. So everything's looking good. Now we have the pivot table in the correct format. So I'm going to click on the top left cell in the pivot table, copy that, go down quite a few rows. That way I can anticipate future data when it gets filled in further. Paste it. I'm going to right click on the date, go to Create Pivot Date Group, and do year and month. Now just to test that out to show you, if I double click on one of the tasks completed again, and I change that to a different month entirely, then the pivot table will automatically reflect an additional month as a result. Alright, so now both of our task focus pivot tables are complete. Now we need to do the same thing for priority and task type. So I'm going to go ahead and select the top left cell of the pivot table, paste that quite a few rows down to anticipate future data just like last time. I'll click on the new pivot table, then click the pencil to open up the editor. I'm going to delete task focus And I'm going to drag in priority to rows instead. And I'm going to remove the show totals. So now instead of the counts being broken up by task focus, it's broken up by priority instead. I'm going to copy this pivot table by clicking the top left corner, hitting copy, going a few rows down to anticipate future data, and pasting it. I'll right click on the dates and click ungroup pivot item to make those days again since we already have the month. I'll copy the pivot table down again. Instead of having priority, I'm going to change that to type. And I'll do it again. Instead of having priority, I'll change that to type. And once again, we need one for week and one for month. So if you did it correctly, you should have a task focus for week and month, priority for week and month, and the priority are actually in month and then week. It doesn't really matter. You can build the charts this way if you want. I'm going to fix this a little bit later on just so I keep everything uniformed. After priority, we'll have the type as week and then month. So going back to priority, it's a super easy fix to switch these around. All you have to do is right click on the date, then click on ungroup pivot item. And then for the one that you want to be the month, right click on the date, create pivot date group, then year and month. So now our pivot tables are all set. So we're going to go to the visualizations tab, and it doesn't really matter what cell you click on. Go to insert chart, click on the four little boxes to the right, delete the range that's currently there, go to the visualizations worksheet, and we're going to select our pivot table. So I'm going to skip the top row, so start with task focus. Include rows that are past where you need to go, that way you can anticipate future data, then go all the way to include all columns. Once you select the range, you'll hit OK, change the chart type to stacked column chart, select all three boxes at the bottom, and it should look like this where you have it stacked. You have the legend as task focus, and then you have the dates on the x-axis. We'll go to Customize, Chart Title, then we'll type in Task Focus Completed. Then we'll use the drop-down to select Chart Subtitle by week. Then we'll do Horizontal Axis Title, Week Completed, and Vertical Axis Title, Number Completed. And once you add all that, it should look like a proper graph. So when everything's looking good, and we can simply click on it and drag it to move it to wherever we want it to be. Now we're just going to copy and paste that graph below and move it to make sure it's uniformed. Click on the three dots in the top right hand corner, click on Edit Chart. Then we're going to change the range. So we'll click on the four boxes, delete the range that's currently there, and do the same thing we did last time. This time we'll do the month pivot table and skip the first line, click on Task Focus, go down many rows past where you need it to be, and go all the way to the last column. Under Chart Subtitle, we want to change by week to by month. And under the Horizontal Axis title, we want to change week completed to month completed as well. And you can do that directly from the chart itself or from the editor. So now you have the template for both the week and the month. So we'll click on week, paste that to the right side, click on the three dots, go to Edit Chart. And we want to change this range by clicking on those four boxes and deleting the range. Go back to the visualizations worksheet, and we'll select the priority range instead. Make sure to add a few rows beneath it and skip that top line and include all of the columns. And on the chart itself, all we need to do is change the title from task completed to priority, and that's it. We'll do the same thing for month, so we'll copy the month chart. We'll drag it to be aligned, click on the three dots in the top right hand corner, click Edit Chart, click on those four boxes, delete the data range that's already there, go back to our visualizations worksheet tab, and then click on the month version of the priority. And once again, go well below it to anticipate future data and go to the end of the columns. And just like last time, we just need to replace in the title, Task Focus with Priority. So now we have the task focus and the priority. All we need to do is do this one more time for the task type and we'll be done. So we'll copy the week, drag it over so it's aligned better, click the three dots, click Edit Chart, click on those four boxes for the range again, delete the current range, go back to our visualizations worksheet, and for the week type pivot table, once again we'll go a few rows below and all the way to the right. And for the task title, we just need to delete priority and change that to task type instead. And then just like last time, we need to click on the month, copy that chart, and then we'll paste that to the right. For some reason, I didn't copy that chart. I copied the week chart instead, so we'll just roll with it. Just like last time, we'll click on the three dots in the top right-hand corner, click on those boxes, then we'll delete the range that's already there. And now we want to go to the month for the task type. Same deal as always, we'll hit OK. We'll need to change priority to task type for the title. And if you did like me and you accidentally copied the week instead of the month, you'll need to update those as well. I didn't notice it, so I did not do that. To make it easier to read, I went ahead and made it 75%, so you can see that we have the week and the month for the task focus, for the priority, and for the task type. So this will give you a good bird's eye view of exactly where you're spending your time. Now to test things out, I'll go to my task list tab, and I'm going to complete one of my tasks just as an example. So I'll do one of my recurring tasks. And now if I go to my Done tab, you'll see that at the bottom. Now at this point, the Visualizations Worksheet tab is essentially just a pass-through. You can see the different pivot tables there if you need it, but you can hide it otherwise. We don't really need to see it at this point. But as you saw, we had the new task, and you can see that new task reflected in the charts as well. Now just for further example, I'm going to go to our Done tab, and I'm going to change that task completed date to something back in May. And if I go to our Visualizations tab, it will update automatically. And now you can see that task is now reflected in May instead of it being in June. So that's it. Your task tracker is now complete and ready to use. If you make this tracker, comment and let me know what you think. And if you like this video, like and subscribe for more.